Alright, so in one corner we got Dave Ramsey himself with a net worth of nearly $200 million, and in the other corner we have me with maybe $5 worth of his name. Now we're going to get into a fight and see who has the right methods on how to accumulate wealth. First off, let me begin by saying that I am not a financial advisor. I am not even a millionaire, and I am nowhere near Dave Ramsey's net worth. I respect Dave Ramsey. He's like an old Asian dad that no one ever had. You know, he always nags on you on things about money and, where not to spend. He wants to be very successful very young, and, it's pretty annoying. But everyone should at least listen to him or, hear him out at least once in their life. And, I must admit that I've been listening to Dave Ramsey ever since I graduated college back in 2017. I appreciate the fact that he has these guidelines that help millions of people manage their debt and, get out of debt, manage their money. And in the end, he did help me learn how to manage my money. But as a millennial living in, today's era, his baby steps are wrong. They need to be adjusted, and, they don't always work out, especially with today's current situation. So what worked for him, back in the day, it doesn't work right now. Changes have happened, we can all admit that. And, if you can't adjust to change, then you'll just be left out. So for the most part, everyone can agree with me that if change happened, then you have to adapt to the change. So first off, I want to go over his 7 baby steps, and they're right here on his website. And I'm going to go over each one just so you guys can get a sense of what I'll be targeting. So the first one is save $1,000 for emergency funds. The next one is pay off all debt except your home mortgage using the debt snowball. The third one is save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. The fourth one is invest 15% into your retirement. Number 5 is save for a college fund if you have kids. Number 6 is pay off your home early. And the last one is build wealth and give. Alright, so that was the list. That's the 7 commandments that he has written down in stone. And he wants everyone just to follow these guidelines step by step. And it's in that order for a reason. So now I want to go over why it's wrong and really what needs to be adjusted. So these are, to me, the millennial baby steps that they have to follow. Some of them will be similar, but the numbers will probably change. So the first one for what I call millennial steps are save at least $2,000 to $3,000 for emergency funds. Now the reason why it's not $1,000 is because to me $1,000 is not enough. Again, back in the day, maybe for him $1,000 was worth a lot more. But in today's standards, $1,000 is not even enough for rent. So how can you even begin baby step number 2 and pay off debt if you can't even guarantee to pay for next month's rent or even have food on the table? So to me, $1,000 is just way too small. You need $2,000 to $3,000, or at least this month's and next month's rent plus food and utilities. And that to me is about $2,000 to $3,000. Although it could depend on your state. I live in California, so it is more expensive here, but at least in the range of $2,000 to $3,000. So the second one, yes, it's still pay off debt, but instead pay off debt with the highest interest rate. So I do agree with him. You don't have to pay off home mortgage right away. That itself is a beast, and that should be its own separate step. And it should be approached differently at a different stage in your life. So pay off high interest debt. So overall, that's how just math works. You should attack the one that stings the most. All other debts, yes, they are nuisances, they are still something you owe, but it is overall not the main threat. It's the one with the highest interest rate that should be targeted first. Now, I get why people use the snowball method. It's more like an emotional thing because it feels like you've accomplished something because you were able to beat a small little henchman. But in the end, money should be thought of logically, not emotionally. The next thing I should address is that you don't have to pay off all debt. So all debt can include things like home mortgage, again, that itself is a different beast, student loans, and maybe even car loans. So for example, sometimes these loans are about 2 to 3%. And right now, even with student loans, they're 0%. So what I'm saying is that you don't have to pay off all debt is because instead of putting that money into that small 2 to 3 or even 0% interest, you can use that money to make more money. I know it's not guaranteed, but if, for example, you put that money that you would have put into your student loans into the stock market that makes maybe 8% a year, then technically you are making 8% more on that $100, for example, if you were to put it into the stock market rather than student loans. In the end, you want to choose something that will have a net positive for wherever you put your money. That being said, most likely the credit card debt is going to be the one that you want to aim for, so that one could have 20% interest. If you can't control your spending and think that you got to pay an extra 20% for that item because you can't pay it off right now, then you got other major problems to deal with, and overall you just can't afford it. So that to me means that you're sort of stealing because you can't afford to buy the full amount. So if anything, Dave Ramsey and I do agree that we should tackle credit card debt because that one has the most, the highest interest. In summary, for this bullet point, just do the math. Attack the one that hurts the most. Use common sense and, don't spend more than you can actually afford. Step number 3. If you're able to, get rid of most of your debt, what I want you to do now is save 6 months worth of expenses rather than 3 to 6 months. Even better would be 6 to 12 months. So what that could equivalent to, if you don't really have a good gauge, could be between 10 to 20,000 worth of like mega emergency funds. So at this point, you're actually probably halfway through, accumulating wealth. You've managed to control your spending. You beat off most of your debt. And at this point, I actually do encourage you to continue to wipe out most of your remaining debt, even if it's like 2 to 3%, because for the most part, it's really not going to sting too much anymore. Again, excluding your house. I say that because really, why would you want to have these small little splinters and thorns on your side when you can just like wipe out everything? At this point, you've managed to control a lot of it. So basically, once you've wiped out all of your debt except your house, then have this super mega emergency fund. Again, every location is different, so if you live in a less expensive state, then you could probably tweak it down a little bit. But because I live in California and everything is so expensive, rent for just like an apartment, for like a little cheap apartment, could be like maybe $2,000 per month. So if I need at least 12 months worth of living expenses, then I need about $24,000. And this is just like for rent. This doesn't even include utilities or food. So just having like $20,000 worth of cash sitting in a high interest savings account, to me, that cushion and having that peace of mind, it is worth it. And I know some of you guys out there are going to say that, cash is trash. Inflation would just eat away at that. Overall, yes, I do agree. Cash is trash. Inflation will eat away at my cash. But I don't know what will happen in the stock market. What if I need to like repair my roof tomorrow? Or what if I need to pay for something tomorrow? How am I going to get my money? Yeah, I can sell it, but what if at that time when I have put the money into the stock market and it went down, I just lost what I put in? And I don't want to put on a credit card. Let's say it costs like tens of thousands, but in the end I can't pay tens of thousands at that time. So am I really going to start back over to step number 2? You're just starting backwards at that point, so just don't do it. Have money set aside for that big emergency. The 4th one is invest a reasonable percent into retirement. So instead of 15%, it should probably change. This is not a fixed percent number. Be reasonable with your time horizon and how much can you really afford to not have the money today. Factors will vary depending on your age and salary. So for example, if you just graduated college and are just starting to work and you have like no student debt, then you're way ahead of the curve. You don't need to put like 15% into retirement because at that point you have like say 40 years to watch it grow. You're still young, and assuming like you do a good job and you have good work ethics, then you probably still will get a raise and you'll probably be making more money as age progresses. Again, 15% is a lot of money, and you won't be seeing that money until you reach retirement age. Sadly, you might not even make it to that age because you don't know what will happen to your life. But overall, I just want you to understand that 15% of your money will be gone to something that you will not see for years to come. And we can only, cross our fingers and hope that eventually we'll reach that goal and be rewarded with it. But just not having that money today, it can affect your life. Who knows, you might have had a really good opportunity to buy something, so you missed your chance. I also want to talk about the topic of the percent match. 99% of the time, you should actually always put in the bare minimum just to get the full amount of match that your employer makes. So if your employer matches only like 6%, then just do 6%. Don't put any more or any less. Again, this will depend varying on your age and your salary, but you don't have to put 20% if you're like 20 years old, they only match 6%. Even if you are in debt, with some very rare exceptions, you should still want to put some money into retirement just to get the match. The employer is literally paying you just to put in dollar for dollar match. So you might as well just take it. Again, even if you're in debt, depending on how much debt and how bad you need the money, you should still probably take it. Just up to the bare minimum match. The next few points aren't so relevant anymore, but just to be consistent, step number 5 is to save for a college fund. This only applies if you have children, so if you don't have children, you could definitely go out and skip a few steps or put in more effort into other steps. Step number 6 is pay off your house early. I'll say this depends. So sometimes if your interest rate is really, really low, for example, so for me personally, I have an interest rate of 2.625% for my mortgage. That means if I can somehow earn anything above 2.625%, then it just makes sense to put that money into there. I actually want to spread it out as long as possible and use that money for something else. So if a bank account, a high interest savings account, somehow gives me like 2.8%, that means I'm actually making more money putting into that bank account than to put into my mortgage. And I'm receiving a 0.175% return. In the end, you still pay a monthly mortgage, so don't think that you're actually making money off of this. Inflation at this point is good. It's good because you've locked in your interest rate for your mortgage at 2.625%. But if inflation is 3%, for example, then your monthly fixed rate for your mortgage is not as painful because as time progresses, each dollar gets less valuable. And lastly, step number 7, there's no change. At this point, you've actually reached like becoming wealthy. You can spend frivolously and do whatever you want. So these are the 7 millennial steps that people should take. It's just some of his commandments and his, baby steps. They just don't always work. That was what worked for him, and I'm pretty sure he might have had that written down like, decades back. And although they do have like valid points, they are not always, set in stone things that can work out for everyone. Again, it's a good point to like start off in, but things have to be adjusted accordingly to your life. But I think most people my age would actually agree with me saying that his bullet points are not up to date. So if you do agree with me, go ahead and like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.